Hey everybody, Jack Carr checking in. It has been an extremely busy couple months around here with the book tour and finishing up Savage Son, which I did a couple days ago, and can't wait to get that out to everybody in April. But this is how I do it after I finish. I print it out, bind it, and go through it this way because I find a lot more as I read through a physical hard copy rather than just on the computer. So that's going into editing. Can't wait to get this one to everybody. It's fired up about it. And whew, it's early. Gotta have a Black Rifle coffee. Fire up the day. These guys have been awesome. And anybody that orders this month gets a card for True Believer in all the Black Rifle Coffee packages that go out. And it'll have some Black Rifle Coffee specific stuff in there, like the podcast that we did together that you can find on the website. So thank you guys for all that support. Eagles and Angels. That collaboration went amazing. This is my buddy Trevor Thompson's hat. He's Thompson Parasports on Instagram, but he does some Black Rifle Coffee photography and a bunch of other amazing stuff, jumping off of planes and off cliffs and craziness like that. But this is his uniform on this hat, and I did one for my hat. My wife, I think, is rocking that right now. And we also did these with an old uniform of mine, a Cry Pro uniform from Iraq. So they made these belt buckles. My uniform's in the background right there, and I think they sold out in an hour or something like that. But Eagles and Angels, awesome group. And Tattered Cover Bookstore in Denver. The one I went to was in Aspen Grove, had a great talk there. Tons of people showed up, signing books, signing AR magazines, which was crazy, first time for that. And they gave me this golden bookmark. So cool, love bookmarks, and I always have since I was a little kid. So thank you to Tattered Cover, amazing. All right, what else do we have here this week? So thank you to everyone at Gulfstream. So book 3 has a large G550 component to it, and if you listen to the Jocko podcast, you'll know that I have a little bit of a connection to that plane. Holds a place near and dear to my heart, and so Gulfstream has been helping me to just making sure I get that part right, since I haven't been in too many of them. But they sent this G650 over. Awesome. The kids are gonna love playing with this, but man, so cool. And thank you guys for all your help. Also sent a bunch of other swag like this hat. Much appreciated. Thank you guys for helping me get that part right in the third novel. And got a few blades. Always gotta bring out some blades. So this is Colonel blades right here. My buddy Mickey at Carry Trainer, so at Carry Trainer on all the social channels and website and everything. He gave me this a while ago, and if you go to his Instagram, there are some sweet videos of him using this thing, and this thing is just so sweet. And I think the Colonel Blades Instagram and website's down right now for a tactical pause, but they will be back, and they make this sweet blade. So definitely check that out. And if you're looking for some training, check out Carry Trainer. He is awesome. I've trained with him, shot with him, and not only is he a great shot, but he is an amazing teacher. So follow him, check him out. If you get a chance to shoot with him and get on the line with him and take one of his classes, I highly recommend it. Hey, thank you to people at New West Knife Works. They have a few stores out there now. They used to have, they have Jackson Hole still right there in the downtown area, and they have a St. Helena store, and they just opened one up here in Park City. So this is their new Hunter Forager blade right here. I'm gonna take this to Alaska in a few days and give this a run, but love their stuff. The Mountain Man Toy Shop is also part of the same company, and they have all the throwing tomahawks that I like to throw, and just a great group of people. So check them out, they're awesome. And just got back from Russia. So Russia was a crazy trip. I wanted to go there to do some research for book 3 to weave in as I was finishing it up to give some of that local flavor, like I did with Mozambique for the second novel, True Believer. And it was an interesting trip. I'll talk more about it, but going over there and talking to the people in Kamchatka, which is far eastern Russia, just below Siberia, where a lot of the action in book 3 takes place. I think that the history of Russia, when someone asks you a lot of questions or starts asking you questions, your radar goes up, because for a lot of Russian history, getting asked questions by anyone was not a good thing. So a lot different than going to Mozambique and doing that research where everyone wanted to talk about what was going on, talk about the Chinese influence in illegal and legal mining operations, how meat poaching was playing into that to feed the people that were working there, the ivory poaching going on, how all of that affects the environment. So people in Mozambique wanted to talk and tell the story of their country. In Russia, a little different. And I should have looked at the information package a little bit harder before I went over there, because I didn't realize that you could not bring a knife over that was longer than 3 inches. And this is a tad bit longer than 3 inches. This is a Randall-made knife that I had made a few years ago for one of the kids. I had a Randall-made knife made for each of them on every deployment, because there's just such an amazing history with this, with these blades. And I wanted to bring this over and get some photos of it with one of my favorite novels, Last of the Breed by Louis L'Amour. And I hadn't read that novel since the 80s, and I wanted to capture really the essence of it in book 3 and not necessarily read it again before I started writing. So I brought the novel over, brought this knife over, and thought it would pair well in Russia. But they almost confiscated this from me going through customs. But I think that the customs officer, the Russian, I think he was a hunter, and he recognized the blade and let me keep it. So to the Russian customs guy, thank you. What else do we have going on? I've been asked since I started doing this, since the first novel came out, and if I would post a reading list. And I am, and it's been on my list to do for quite some time. But as I was leaving the SEAL teams, the Naval Special Warfare Center asked me to put together a professional reading list. And I did that, and I broke it down by category, and I talked about why each of those categories was important for a SEAL's professional development. And I don't know how I'm going to use that. I gave it to them as I was getting out, and I have no idea if they actually used it or implemented it or not. But figuring out how I'm going to use that. But I will take some of the books from that, and then some of the books that I read growing up, both fiction and non, and share some of those each month with everyone. So I think that's going to go on a blog on the website, and by the time this video posts, it might already be up. So if you're interested in what I read growing up, what I'm currently reading, what books influenced me over my life, both professionally and personally, those will go up on the blog with a little bit of information on why those were important and impactful to me. And the first group I'm going to share with you right now. So of course, my favorite book of all time, if you've heard me on podcasts, you've probably heard me talk about it, Once an Eagle by Anton Meyer, written in 1968, which is essentially, it's historical fiction, but it's essentially a case study in leadership. And it follows 2 people from right before World War I up through Vietnam. And it juxtaposes their time in the military. One's a prior enlisted guy who gets a battlefield commission on the battlefield in World War I. The other guy's a staff officer who's just slightly ahead of Sam Damon, who is the protagonist of the story, as they go through their time in the military. So fascinating history, piece of historical fiction, and my most gifted book. I'd give it to my junior officers, my senior enlisted, or anyone that was really interested in the military. And I'd put a letter in the front explaining why I was giving it to them and why I thought it was important. And then I have another letter in the back that was sealed. And that would be my take on what they just read. And I'd tell them that they'd have to get through this novel, which, as you can see, is fairly thick, so you can use it as a doorstop or a weapon if you need to. But they have to get through the book to get to the end and find my take on what they just read. So Once an Eagle, Anton Meyer, kicking it off with that one. Another book very impactful to me, Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell. And I was introduced to Joseph Campbell in 1988 when he did a series of interviews with Bill Moyers on PBS called The Power of Myth. And this is his seminal work, Hero with a Thousand Faces, but he studied mythologies across culture and found similarities in those mythologies in that hero's journey. So this is something that I think about often as I'm writing, and have thought about as I've read and watched movies over the course of my life, and thought about how those movies and those books fit in to the model that Joseph Campbell talks about here in Hero with a Thousand Faces. So very valuable and very impactful book to me. For fiction, gotta kick it off. Vince Flynn, Term Limits. This book, if you have not read it, pick it up today. It's been out for a while. This is Vince Flynn's first novel. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. His writing continues through Kyle Mills, who continues the Mitch Rapp series. But in Term Limits, this is the one and only book where Mitch Rapp is not the protagonist. But this was a groundbreaking book at the time, and it still is today. So if you haven't read it, go out there, get this today and start your journey with Vince Flynn and his characters. It's an amazing series. So I'm actually jealous if you haven't to pick this up yet, because then you have a great reading journey ahead. All right, a little more on the professional side of things. The Great Game. I'm often asked what I read about, what I recommend to read about Afghanistan or what's going on in that part of the world, Central Asia. And The Great Game by Peter Hopkirk. This is required reading for anyone going to Afghanistan, studying Afghanistan, that wants to talk about Afghanistan with others or make comments on what's going on over there. I highly recommend that you take a look at this book, read it, study it, let it sink in. But The Great Game, Peter Hopkirk, definitely read this book. And creativity side of the house. So most people know Steven Pressfield from Gates of Fire, from Afghan Campaign, Legend of Bagger Vance, but he also has a series on creativity. And this is the first one in that series that I read, and it's called The War of Art. He has a few others. One's called The Authentic Swing, another one's called Do the Work, another one's called Turning Pro. But this is the first one I read, War of Art. I read it once, I read all those books once, and then I put them within view of my computer and my writing station as I was writing the terminal list. So I didn't revisit them, but they were right there just because I felt that it was kind of, they were giving me, I don't know, inspiration or whatever. But great series of novels, and got a lot from this. And if you haven't read this and are in the creative space at all, doesn't matter if it's writing, sculpting, painting, no matter what it is, everyone in the creative spaces should read The War of Art. And then I'm pretty sure you'll go on and get the rest of the books in the series as well. So Steven Pressfield, War of Art, highly recommended. And this one, all right, gotta give it up for United States Marine Corps, warfighting. For those interested in tactics, or if you're writing about tactics, if you're an author and you're writing about military type things, this is a quick read, as you can tell, but it distills everything down to the basics, which, if those in the military know that KISS, keep it simple, stupid. That is one of our acronyms. But warfighting, anyone in the military should read this book. You can get through it for sure in an hour or two. Take notes, highlight, let it sink in, revisit this novel or this book time and time again if you're a professional in the military. Warfighting. All right. I think that is everything. For now, anyway. Thank you, everyone, for all your support. It is sincerely appreciated, and more to come. Take care.